Hello, scrufftards, degenerates, weirdos, and all you freaky people that stick around online. Welcome to the War Zone. I'm Scruffy, and this is Scruffy Tales. And, 1001 days of war in Ukraine, and it is 1001 days of Ukraine showing resilience, resistance, showing that they will not bow down to tyranny. And basically, it is 1001 days of Ukraine telling Russia to fuck off. And, on top of it, the United States has given the go-ahead for Ukraine to use long-range missiles to strike at targets within Russia itself, and more specifically within Kursk Oblast, where Ukraine has pushed into Russia itself, taken territory, and this will help Ukraine tremendously in holding on to their gains and striking targets far away from the point of contact. Right, so I spent 5 minutes recording without the microphone turned on. How about that? That's not annoying at all. So let's try and start this over. So, Andrew Perpetua's map, we have here a lot of Russian vehicles getting destroyed as they're trying to push south. But on top of that, we also have Russian BTR destroyed here, as well as here inside the town of Novaya Sorochina, which is interesting because a couple of days ago, Russia was shelling Ukrainian positions up here, and we also had Ukraine pushing in to town into Pogrebki, taking POWs, and you had a Bradley and a famous viral video moving up, taking out a couple of the Russian vehicles down here. And a couple of days before that, Russia was trying to come in here, getting destroyed as they moved down this way. Now, when we saw this, I was talking about it felt strange that Russia made it this far, and it was obvious that they would get knocked out moving in between Ukrainian positions, right? And I was wondering, does that indicate that Russia has taken control of this part of the terrain, maybe even here? And as we move on to more current updates, they've once again come down this way and reached as far as town itself here, Novaya Sorochina, with this big push coming in from the north aimed at these woods. So I'm curious if Russia is not in control, in parts at least, of these woods and these valleys over here, and that allows them to come in this way and follow the dirt tracks or the roads here, dirt roads that go along these windbreaks here, all the way into town here at Novaya Sorochina. So this appears to be the main battle at the moment, where you have a lot of back and forth with Ukraine pushing in north, Russia coming in from the flank here, western flank, potentially trying to come in behind the Ukrainians and cut them off here in Pogrebki. Things appear to be, quiet down. We're not that many updates, at least within Nova Ivanovka. So this appears to be the main fight at the moment, and which is why I have made it these territories, these areas, as unknown, where we have Ukraine trying to push into Pogrebki. Meanwhile, we have Russia trying to push in here, bypassing the Ukrainians and coming in behind them at Novaya Sorochina. So, yeah, I mean, this is probably a very fluid, chaotic battlefield where we have Ukraine maybe holding a couple of buildings. Further up the street, you have Russians. Here, you may have Ukrainians over here, maybe. Meanwhile, you have Russians moving in here, potentially. And then Russia trying to rush down the dirt roads to reach Novaya Sorochina, occupying a couple of buildings, and then you might have Ukrainians down here, for instance. So, chaotic. Everyone is basically cut off and surrounded, so you're fighting to link up with friendlies. You're getting pushed back, and it's a lot of back and forth. And I don't think we have a clear front line in this area. I think it's pockets of Russians and pockets of Ukrainians holding various places, positions, and then they are all trying to push in to link up to establish a proper front line. And this does appear to be the main battle at the moment in Kursk. And this is also where we have rumors that the North Koreans are deployed together with the 810th Naval Infantry Regiment fighting for the Russians. So we might be seeing the North Koreans making these big pushes up here, trying to flood infantry into these woods so that they then can push in towards Orlovka and then force Ukraine back down to Staraya Sorochina. What we do know is that Ukraine has lost territory up here on the ridge along the railroad. Russia has gained access to this area here and pushed Ukraine back to around this area here. So Russia is pushing in this way. And by all accounts, they are pushing in here through these woods along the dirt road here and are challenging the Ukrainians here as well as in Novaya Sorochina. Obviously, one of the big things now that we've reached 1,000 days of war in Ukraine is, of course, that now Ukraine has been given the chance to launch Atacms missiles at Russian positions within Kursk Oblast. Seems to be the area where they're allowed to use them. And this is, you might be pissed off that they're not allowed to attack all over the place. Yes, this will leave a lot of Russian missile sites untouched, a lot of Russian air bases, airfields untouched, but it will affect the front line here. It will allow Ukraine to potentially hold on to what they've gained and maybe even push on and reclaim territory. Because what it does is allow Ukraine to strike bridges all over the place, far away from the front line. It allows them to attack headquarters in Kursk. It allows them to attack supply depots, fuel depots, repair stations. They can take out so many crucial Russian assets far away from the front line that is now beyond their reach, or was up until this point beyond their reach. And taking those targets out will make it difficult for Russia to continue attacks down here. I mean, imagine if they keep attacking fuel depots and repair stations. Russian vehicles will break down. They won't be able to move. And that will prevent Russia from attacking. If they hit ammunition depots, I mean, Russia cannot attack as aggressively, or they will have to wait longer times for ammunition and logistics to be moved in. So this could have a huge impact on the fighting going on here in Kursk. And if we take a look here, let's see here, I'm on the deep state map now, by the way. We choose MLRS, and then we scroll down to HIMARS, and we choose Atacms Block 1 with a 165 kilometer range, which should be the missile that Ukraine is allowed to utilize. And let's put it, I don't know, somewhere down here outside of Sumy. Boom! This is the range. Right? Well away from Russian artillery. And they can move in, set up, launch, and then be on their way before Russia can counter them with airstrikes and what have you. And then launch attacks all over the place. I mean, they can attack, I mean, just to highlight, right? This is a relatively safe location for a HIMARS to set up and then launch a missile. Take a look how far they can get. Kursk itself, and here you can launch missiles into this area. I'll show you what they can reach from that position. We move up to Kursk and zoom in. What's this? Military fighter jets, right? Ukraine can bomb this airfield all day long. and other targets, obviously. And I mean, Western intelligence will provide all the targets that Ukraine needs, all the target coordinates that they need to start a campaign to wipe out Russian military assets here in Kursk Oblast. And that will allow Ukraine to hold on to territory here and potentially even push out if they can reduce the amount of fuel, ammunition, and other, fuel and what have you, food, and what have you. All of that. If you reduce the amount of the logistics coming into the front line, you will reduce the fighting efficiency of the Russian soldiers, and then you can actually push them away from the area and secure territory once more. Maybe push into Yubimovka and maybe continue back up to Koronevo. That would be awesome if Ukraine can reduce the fighting capacity of the Russians enough here in Kursk with these Atacms strikes. Potentially they can start moving back towards Koronevo. So we'll see what happens. But yes, you may be upset that they are not allowed to utilize Atacms all over the place. But where they are allowed to do it, it is super crucial. Because if Ukraine can begin reclaiming territory here, it will force Russia to bring in more troops from other parts of the front line to help out with the fight up here. Because the Russian generals will come under such heavy political pressure from Moscow to sort this out that they will have to bring in troops to ensure that they can push Ukraine out of Russia. So if the Atacms can help Ukraine hold the line and potentially reclaim territory, we will see a lot more Russians down here being moved up to help the fight in Kursk, moving the war from Ukraine into Russia. So Ukraine now has 30 to 60 days to use these weapons freely against targets within Russia, in Kursk Oblast, I should say, before Trump takes over and becomes president of the United States. Will he then retract this decision? Probably. It's not unlikely. So for 30 to 60 days, we will see, it will be rain from hell falling down on the Russians and North Koreans in Kursk. And Ukraine will make sure to destroy as much of Russian logistics and support units as possible in Kursk to make it as difficult for Russia on the actual front line, and making sure Ukraine can hold on to territory within Russia as Trump takes over and probably forces all parties to sit down at a negotiation table. But that said, we should remember that, Russia, the United States can't force Ukraine to sit down at a negotiation table. Maybe they will just stop supporting Ukraine with Trump as president. If that happens, it is up to Europe to support Ukraine with everything they need. The gloves must come off. We must tell Russia that this is our continent. Europe belongs to Europeans. It doesn't belong to Russia. So if the United States decides to back away, then Europe has to step up and do what is required to make sure that Russia is stopped dead in its tracks. That's it. I hope I'll see you in the next one. As always, go på marsch, Ukraine, and give them hell.